Hello, and welcome to the Law Firm Blueprint. I'm one of your hosts, Jay Ruane, CEO of FirmFlex, your social media marketing agency for lawyers, as well as managing partner of Ruane Attorneys, a civil rights and criminal defense firm in Connecticut. With me, as always, back from his sojourn, my man Seth Price down there in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, the managing partner of Price Benowitz, powerhouse law firm, as well as one of the grand poobahs over there, Blue Shark Digital, SEO for law firm. Seth, it's been a while since we've been live together. You did a show, then I did a show, but now we're back here, brothers in arms. How have you been?
I have been great. A couple weeks of R&R. All the gurus talk about, can you walk away from your firm and have it work? And when the team is there, this was my most carefree vacation from the point of view of nothing exploded. Team did what they were supposed to do. No major issues. I go back, I don't know what it was, about 8 years ago, and we lost our head of finance, the sort of junior controller position. And, my law partner, Dave, is on the phone with me. I'm paying $3 a minute from some cruise ship 8 years ago. And he's deciding whether or not to hire somebody who had like an armed kidnap conviction for the position. Now, obviously that would not have been a good move, but that's the level that we were at. We were like that desperate. Thankfully, and ironically, the person that we popped in, hired during that vacation is still with us 8-9 years ago later. And it worked out for the good, but it just shows you, when you go away, Murphy's Law, this happened to be a good one. Things were good. And to be fair, we put things in place, whether it be operations, HR, things like that, so that with the right team in place, there was a lot less need for myself.
Yeah, one of the things that we deal with often as owners is an inability to break away. Getting away for 2 weeks is so much better than getting away for 1 week, because you start to see the cracks, right? You start to see the things. And I know you have a lot of friends in finance in New York. I have a ton of friends in finance. And there was always that rule in finance where you needed to take 2 weeks off back to back, because while people can cover up stuff for a week, it's really, if you're doing something wrong in 2 weeks, that's going to show up and it's going to get caught. And, maybe it's something that people should be thinking now is getting away for a 2 week chunk of time so that you can actually honestly start to see where the problems are. If it's an intake problem, if it's an operational problem, if it's an admin problem. So I really think 2 week vacation. My goal has always been to try to get away for a month. I also was planning on taking a break, and 12 hours before I was due to get on a flight to go to Charleston, my whole family tested positive for COVID. So my vacation week turned into a week in quarantine at my house, which is, it threw me back to 2 years where you can't go anywhere. But this time the whole world was carrying on without us. And so that was a bit of a challenge. I couldn't get into the office. So I worked remotely, but I figured I might as well work. I was here. So,
But two things on that. One, what I remember as a baby lawyer was that people would say to me that the 1 week vacation is brutal because you prepare to leave, you set everything up to be handled, then you're gone and you come back and it's hell. With at least 2 weeks, all that effort to get yourself prepared to be out at least has more of a payoff.
Yeah, the last couple of years, I always did 2 weeks at the beach with my family, and it was definitely huge. That intervening weekend where you're not having to travel back, you actually start to decompress. And that actually brings me to a point. We didn't really talk about this pre-show, but vacation time for lawyers. One of the things that's happening right now is I'm starting to see some burnout from some lawyers because, COVID hit, everyone sort of, retrenched, and I know I myself during COVID, I was running 100 miles an hour. I felt every day I was running this sprint to be like, I got to keep my business afloat. And now I think we're really at the, people are burned out, right? So we've traditionally gone with the whole lawyers can take unlimited vacation, just work your schedule around it. But people aren't taking that vacation. They're finding simple excuses. I'm thinking about going back to a you get 4 weeks of paid time off a year, 20 days or 25 days as an attorney, and you can't carry them over. You got to take them, because I'm starting to see people burn out, and there's always a reason to not take a break. What are your thoughts on that? Should you do unlimited? Should you give them set times? Should you just say do whatever you want because you're making, as long as you handle the clients, you're fine? How do you guys do it?
I don't love the term unlimited vacation because it's kind of a fiction. Right. And I don't like things that are not genuine, because if you did take unlimited, then you wouldn't have a job, there wouldn't be a business, et cetera. That said, for our attorneys, and a lion's share of our attorneys have some sort of incentive model, right? Whether it's percentage of sales or whether it's a bonus based on production, whatever it is, people are incentivized enough so they take vacation. But one of our highest earners, one of my partners, he travels all over the world. He just gets his shit done. Now, these aren't pure vacation days. He may be in Thailand, but he'll sign up a major case from there. So he's sort of balancing those two. So to me, it's, I think partially, and this is one of the things that we do have scheduled to talk about today, which is when you have the right person, vacation doesn't become the issue, because generally they can get their stuff done, take vacation, and the right person like you or I, or somebody who you want to be, they're not going to be you, but somebody who emulates the same sort of drive is going to be able to take that vacation, hopefully more than, sort of the baseline amount of vacation, but knows that a phone call here or a particular meeting there can make it so that it really allows for that much more without missing a beat. That said, what do you do on the opposite side? You attributed a bunch of things in your statement there, which was burnout, COVID, depression, et cetera, things that I'm dealing with. And I feel like in a certain division, I'm dealing with a group that's never fully recovered. I'm sort of in a bastion of mediocrity with a small group within us. And I'm struggling to know, what do you do? There's a certain amount of, okay, we know everybody struggled through COVID. There's certain mental health issues, et cetera. At the same time, I'm seeing numbers in a division month after month, thoroughly mediocre. What how do you motivate out of that? Do you have to add new blood into the group? What are your thoughts?
Let me ask you, like, when the people in that group first came in, were they crushing it? And now they're just sort of, mailing it in? Is that because whenever anybody new starts, there's the excitement of a new job, and the productivity you get out of somebody in their first 6 months will never match what you get for them from 6 months afterwards, I think, because people come in.
I don't know if I agree with that. To me, when you have A players and they figure it out.
Yeah, but I'm talking about your we're not talking about A players. I mean, A players are always going to be A players. There's a reason why there's MVPs. We had the All-Star game this week for baseball. There are always A players in any business, right? Okay. And a lot of people in our audience are probably former A players for somebody else, and then said, you know what, I'm going to do it myself. But for every Ohtani, there are a lot of grinders in the major leagues, right? There's a lot of grinders out there who don't hit 300. They hit 225, 227. They'll hit 11 home runs a season, have a few errors, but they're not necessarily, making an all-star team. But you need somebody on that bench that's a grinder who's going to play your games, in that respect. And so, can you expect to have a team of all A players?
Clearly not. They're truisms, right? Not everybody's going to be you. Nobody's going to care about the business, all of that. But I'm very fortunate that I have 60% of my team that is playing at that A+ level. I just have a small subset, sort of like the bottom 10%, like anything else, where I'm struggling because, there's a certain amount of bend that we gave everybody with sort of COVID and sort of the ups and downs of COVID. But I'm like, okay, we have a sustaining business going forward. how to motivate somebody out of those doldrums. Okay, taking your analogy, assuming that, or your statement that people, the first 6 months is great and it falls, how do you then at least pretend that you don't want it to continue to go down, which I feel is where I'm at. I started with people that were solid, went to okay, and right now I'm below the Mendoza line on a few people. And, I would cherish the opportunity to lift these people up. And, we did beginning of year sort of goals for them. We've tried to sort of push and pull and do things, but I'm getting frustrated. And this is with a good team in place. I have my numbers in place. I have administrative people in place, and I'm trying to find some way to motivate people who are slipping below the mediocre point in the continuum.
Oh, okay. So then here's the next question. I'm in baseball mindset, right? And I know you're a Yankees fan. So you've got essentially a Joey Gallo situation, somebody who performed well with him, in a prior life, when he was with Texas, he was doing much better. Now he's here at Price Benowich, which is the Yankees of Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, right? And he's underperforming. Is it a mental issue, like a mental health issue? Like I think about Billions, right? They have somebody on staff who is a motivational coach to sort of, work out those kinks and get them functioning at the highest level possible. Is that something that you need to bring in to have somebody talk about mindset and where are you at? Do they have other stuff going on? I mean, work is part of our lives. It's all of us for entrepreneurial lawyers like you and I, but for the lawyers that work for us, it may be a very small segment of their lives. If the team is underperforming, can you get into their, into their heads and find out why by using some resources, or do you shake it up and add a player to that?
Well, that's you took the words out of my mouth. That is sort of where I'm at, because look, there's the sort of draconian Jack Welch cut the bottom 10% every year, right? And there's a school of thought to that versus, hey, bring somebody in because, there's nothing like somebody who's kicking ass and taking names to sort of push everybody else in that direction.
Yeah. So I have a friend of mine who played basketball with me growing up, and he was good friends with Scott Burrell when they played basketball at UConn together. And then Burrell went to the Bulls, and Burrell got pushed around by Jordan and elevated his game. And Jordan was always in his face, and you see it in that Jordan documentary there. So I was talking to my friend Oliver about it, and he goes, when I would talk to Burrell, he was just like, Jordan was the guy who was just like, look, I'm an out player, and I am bringing you up. Because you got to keep up with me, and they didn't have the same skill level, but he said he made them better. So maybe that's bringing in, and then that leads me to my next topic that I want to talk about with you, and that is the idea of hiring somebody for HR in your office. I was targeted recently with this service called Bambi, which is outsourced HR for $99 a month. It kept coming up in my social feeds. So I did a call with them and I wanted to see what they do. And essentially what they do is they give you all your policies that your staff needs to sign off on. So they make sure you have I-9 compliance. That's not really HR, if you ask me. That is just making sure that your manual is up to date. And so it's a subscription service for $99 a month. And they make sure that everyone signs off on sex harassment and anti-discrimination practices and all that stuff. And that's something that you can do within your own office. You don't need to spend $99 a month to do that.
But who cares? But you know what? Look, you and I have this issue, which is if it solves a problem, if it genuinely solves a problem. I was just brought, so I'm the worst person to speak to about this because I have dragged my heels on HR hiring historically. Like I've been a big believer, got to get accounting in quickly. Intake is everything. Ops was something I brought to the table, but I always just said, HR, we'll just roll that into ops. And I've done that to my either positive or detriment, for you look at it's a cost center, as opposed to, hey, if there is bandwidth in HR, that person could be the person that helps motivate and sort of figure out what is going on. Now, the problem that I have struggled with is that, very often HR is the secondary thought. So even if you do get it, you end up with a lower dollar person who may not be as powerhouse. And I put my money into ops, where I've generally had some amazing people and just pushed on them. And what I've found is slowly over time is layering the other pieces in. So at this point, without a COVID, we contracted during COVID. We now have full ops, HR, and recruiting. Each is 3 different people. Now, all of our viewers don't have the bandwidth or resources to do that, or the need, but figuring out, to me, what I did, right or wrong, was rolled that into operations, and that only once there was sufficient need and resources made it a separate position. I think one of the things that we talk about a lot on this show is with outsourcing of certain tasks, that there are many things that can be done overseas now that can supplement and what I'll call your main ops person, putting the money into getting one kick-ass person and slowly layering somebody who might be doing all of the payroll prep, somebody who's doing looking at hours, if that's how you work, having people behind the scenes doing all of that support. And then once it's needed, the irony being, I've found that now that we're remote, in one sense, the need for HR has dropped from where I sit, not from my HR person, just because there's less drama, less interpersonal, but you have more of a need to push for and get activities outside the office. You have to be very purposeful in getting guard to your overseas people, whatever it is, they're different. The job description has changed and what is needed. So what is HR? It means a lot of things to a lot of people. Trying to be more proactive than what I've done in the past, where I've sort of said, okay, I'll rely on my ops person to roll it in. I think that the more that you can layer tasks out, so you prop that person up and only pull to a dedicated HR person at the point where you really need it. That's been sort of the pull and tug that I played with.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, it seems to me that talking to other people who are doing what we do is they really would love to have somebody who can do the hiring and more likely the firing for them, because they don't want to deal with that part, placing the ads on Indeed or whatever, going through the resume submissions, all that stuff. And I haven't been able to find I could bring on a remote worker who could do that for me well, but I haven't found a vendor that could do that for me. I don't know what exists out there. I mean, could you have a vendor fire somebody for you?
No, well, look, there are organizations that do outsource pieces, but generally, let's keep it real within our world, that there's a certain amount, I think you could add technology. We early went to Jazz HR. I know there's a gazillion different softwares out there, but to me, as you say HR, what do you mean by that? Because it's a continuum. There's ops, there is what I guess pure HR dealing with the people, and then there's recruiting. And to me, those are different, and each one needs to be looked at, so that if you're in growth mode, having somebody dedicated to recruiting can save you money if it allows you not to use recruiters. We're in such a competitive job market that every dollar I spend internally is something that I save. So similar to marketing, there's a benefit and a place to using outsourced marketing. Thank God, and Blue Shark's done well with that. But there are certain things in-house that if you have a dedicated person that does nothing but something in-house, social. As great as the things that you've done with outsource, the people that succeed best are the people that have a dedicated person in-house, whether full-time or part-time, that are implementing a firm flex or other methodologies to getting social done, and that those that purely outsource it generally don't do as well as somebody where there's a person internally. And I'll just show you, this is case in point with recruiting. We have a couple positions that I really want to fill. And, one of the reasons I keep internal recruiting is that my theory is that a lot of recruiters are at their core lazy. They go for the lowest hanging fruit to make the most money with the least work, where they're just putting an ad up. So if you put an ad up, we got a person that called in on Saturday. It was presented to us by a recruiter on Monday. They did the same thing we could do. Not that LinkedIn and Indeed are cheap, but by doing that, that meant I got talent that would have cost 25% for the cost of the fixed cost of keeping people. And then I almost used it to keep the recruiters, honest. I want somebody who's calling people I can't call. the
Right.
theoretical benefit of a recruiter is they can go figure out who's appropriate without pissing off another law firm and figure out how to place somebody for you. But if all they're going to do is place an ad on Indeed, then why are you paying 20, 25 cents on the dollar when you could just literally do this yourself? Again, if you have a very small firm, you need one person different, but for somebody who's in scale mode, to me, that's the place. So I went first from ops to recruiting to sort of a pure HR person.
Let me ask you this, and this is something that in today's market, do you think it's wise to just always have a job posting up on Indeed or whatever for a lawyer, a paralegal? Because if you constantly have that up, yes, it's going to cost you money. You can manage your budget accordingly, but you never know when somebody has an A player has a shitty 10-day run at work and says, I want to see what's out there. And then all of a sudden you're getting an application and they wouldn't necessarily, I mean, what do you think about that?
My philosophy is I don't have one ad out there. I have 10 ads out there. One or two are like must-haves, but I know, for example, there's a family law dearth of motivated school talent in my market. I constantly have an ad out there because I know that if I get somebody, it will make me more money. So if you're in a position where, where your operations are such that additional talent makes you money, my answer is you put it out there. Now, a lot of people don't want to scale. Even then, I would argue that if you're a PI shop, I've never met a PI shop where additional solid paralegal talent will not be welcomed and make more money for their shop.
Sure.
Right? It's very, very rare that I've seen. I'm just using that as an example. For a criminal defense shop that has any volume, a solid player with experience that can come in and allow you, Jay Ruane, to truly take 2 weeks plus off, that is something that once you have any scale at your firm, there's almost always need. And that's why when I started Blue Shark, I had a sign on my desk. It's an HR play. It's not like the playbook is out there. Yes, there's innovation, but so much of it is managing of great people to produce great results. And therefore, my biggest, in each company, there's a recruiter. And at this point, there are 3 international assistants with that person, one working on international recruiting, one working on domestic, and one is going for the unicorns, looking for that person that could, add a new practice area or, some sort of raise the game. For example, what I talked about earlier, where I need a rock star. Those rock stars don't fall off trees, but if you're always recruiting for it, to me, that is part of the secret to success in the game.
Yeah, it's really sort of interesting. I mean, it's almost like we live in really strange times, because pre-COVID, what worked, and your firm was working, my firm was working. What's working now, and I think what the future will continue to work, is significantly different. And we're at a very interesting time in the development of law firms. You see that billboard company Mighty is now doing down Mighty Law, where they're going to partner with local law firms and cut the fees of PI cases. And I know there was some chatter online about something like that. There's definitely some innovation coming into the market. And I think what was successful in the past, what will be successful in the future, is finding those A players, letting them do good things for people. And that's going to keep business coming back and forth. I do have another question for you before we wrap up. I don't want to go too long on this week's show, but I have a question for you, and I wanted to get your opinion on something. So about a year, actually, it's a year ago this week, that we hired our videographer, photographer, and that has done amazing for us. We've crushed sending out videos. Our pictures look great on our website. We're doing some really good stuff on social with what Jake has been able to do. Very happy with that addition. I think, while it doesn't necessarily seen as a profit center, our brand is growing, and we're really pushing out a lot of stuff. So I'm happy with that. So I was thinking recently about giving him a studio, because right now he basically works out of one of our offices. He comes in, he sets up his lights, we do the videos, then he goes back home and he does that sort of thing. And I was thinking, there are a couple of local areas where there's not a lot of lawyers, but there's a lot of people. The sections of two cities, New Haven and Bridgeport, that are close to us, they have some warehouse space. And I'm thinking, if I got him a studio where his lights were always set up, the chair was set up, and we could just show up there 10, 15 minutes away and bang out videos. He would be great because he would be a lot more effective. He could sit there and upload the stuff right to our editor overseas, right from, and I'm thinking it may be a very productive use of his time and our efforts to build a actual studio, which is mind-boggling to me as a law firm that are going to build an audio video studio. But regardless of that, then I was thinking, well, shit, if I do that, that's technically an office of my law firm. It has a desk, it has a phone, it's got internet access. Could I make that a GMB location? Because, he's going to be working there 40 hours a week. And if people walk up, there's Jake to talk to people. Is it something that I should consider?
Okay, a lot to unpack there. First, I'm a big believer, get the GMBs where you want them, not where there's a situation. So to me, I'm all for, because we're going to talk in a second about the video, right? Awesome, amazing. To me, put a GMB where you want to have a GMB that's good for your clients, that's good for you. Just because you happen to own a condo somewhere doesn't necessarily, 10, 15 minutes away may not be far enough to get a population center that's effective given the reviews you're going to need, et cetera. So to me, I believe, and let's go back to the video guy, because you're the one who pushed me to get a video guy. I got him. I'm glad I did, but it was not a huge success, my first one. I ended up with a person who could shoot video. My FAQ videos were better. The site was better. Some of the videos were better for sending out to clients, still a work in progress. But that said, it didn't solve my social problem. It wasn't until I got somebody who was essentially a strategist with that. But I believe, and what I have seen in my time doing this, is that the secret to success when you do it is proximity. So I actually like the opposite of that, which is if you want, we are all creatures of habit. If you're going to the office, I don't want you going somewhere else. See if you can get a closet somewhere within your place. Love the idea that you're setting up a studio, but to me, going somewhere else for that is not ideal. That you want it to be within your place, and go get a GMB where you want it that's going to make you money, not because you found a warehouse space, but actually where is the most monetizable pin, because the cost and effort that it takes to get reviews, meaningful, real, legitimate reviews is not insignificant. I want that to be where it's most needed. And the video piece, I would say, we had a guy came in once or twice a week. It was out of sight, out of mind. The more they're in your face, the better. And the more that you do stuff off the cuff, because the videos we need that make money are not the videos where they're sort of, not that they can't be scripted, but that the more that it's part of your DNA and not a side thought, I think the better.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. That's why I wanted to bring it up, because there is some reservation for me. Am I going to drive the 15 minutes away to the studio?
And then look, I know we got to wrap up for today, but it brings me to my struggle, which we're going to talk about next week, which is I got a lease coming up in 2 years, which sometimes that sounds like a long thing, but in commercial real estate, it's not that much. And I'm going from a footprint that was at its max, I don't know, let's say, close to 10,000 square feet. Pre-COVID, we were able to bring it down to about 6,000 feet, post-COVID, and we're using that pretty efficiently. But the question is, in a next iteration, am I better shrinking my downtown footprint and then putting, the work from home, the plugging in a computer into a laptop, into a docking station has made it, am I better now, especially with traffic as it builds back up, putting offices where people are and where, frankly, support staff charges a premium in salary needs when they're driving into the city? Am I better off putting offices outside the city where a lot of my competitors are with very inexpensive real estate compared to a modest premium to be downtown? But the piece that isn't in there is that parking is $20 a day, and that a monthly parking is a good $300 a month minimum, and that are we going to be to a point where we've ripped the Band-Aid off? Virtual work is possible. It's not ideal for certain team building pieces, but are we now going to use real estate more smartly? Also goes to the Jay thought of, hey, I can put more pins on the map with legitimate offices all over the place. Now you lose the total esprit de corps, but I have some rock star attorneys in DC that if I said go to the suburbs, they would break over time. And I have staff that if I put them in the suburbs would be much stickier. Now, you don't want people completely disparate, but is there a model where you could use a multi-office scenario, especially in urban environments, to try to maximize employee happiness and retention while at the same time not having a fully virtual work staff?
Yeah, that's a really interesting challenge. I can remember years ago talking to some friends of mine, and they said, well, their parents hired a lawyer because they had an office right near the courthouse. And so for them 40 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe even 15 years ago, that was a sign of you were a good lawyer because you could afford to be next to the courthouse.
And you should keep that. That's what I'm saying is I'm not saying to abandon that.
No, I'm not saying it either. But I think my point is part of deciding where you're going to be in 5 years is understanding the mindset not only of your employees but of your clientele. I mean, for us in the criminal space now, we are meeting with maybe 5% of our clients in the office at any point in a month. I mean, it's Zoom and it's see you at the courthouse, and some people we're never meeting in person because 100% of this is done remotely on the court side. And so in that respect, I'm looking at my office and saying, boy, maybe I should, I've got 4 years left on my lease. It was a 10-year lease and I've got 4 years left on it. I'm thinking at the end of these 4 years, I should, or 2 years from now, I should say, let's take that money on that lease and spread our wings. I don't know. This is a topic that we're going to be talking about.
Right, exactly. So we'll talk about that next week. The other thing I want to tease, my HR person. We now have a full-fledged HR person who's up to speed, and she's like, you should do sexual harassment training. And she's right. Some states actually require it. I didn't realize.
Connecticut does. We do it.
Connecticut does. So our friend of the show and a past guest, Dan Schwartz, two things. One, has a widget built that complies with the 2 hours required at like $50 a head. But I said, I brought something to him, and I'm hoping he follows through and that we can bring this to our listeners, which is, look, for states that don't require it, but you should be doing it, can we get some sort of primer that goes out that checks the box for both, inoculation from potential lawsuits later, that gets and also does the right thing, gets your staff trained. And I'm working with him right now to hopefully bring that to the law firm blueprint, so that, again, there are many that would spark this. Is my HR person brought me a SaaS-based software, $5,000 that my staff over 3 years could log in and take all sorts of courses, which is great. Maybe we want to do that. But the question is, if the answer is what I really care about is a couple specific trainings, let's see if we can get those. And, when it's required to be 2 hours, God bless and do it. But if it's not required to be 2 hours, let's just make sure that we get something short, sweet, to the point and effective. And hopefully we'll have that for our audience in the future.
I love that. And of course, we put that up in the Law Firm Blueprint. And hopefully, if you're listening to this, you're a member of the Facebook group, the Law Firm Blueprint, where you can catch up with myself, you can catch up with Seth, and our 2,000 or so other law firm entrepreneurs that are out there. Be sure to make sure that you are a member of the group. We are posting all sorts of stuff. Last couple of months, we posted all about hiring, managing, firing. We've got some of those policies that are going to be coming up in future weeks. Seth and I are working hard on putting out a whole bunch of products over the next, I guess, pretty much the rest of July and all of August. marketing systems, marketing presentations we have given, things that you can plug and play. If you like doing the marketing in your law firm, it's a great opportunity for you to see some of the things that we have done over the years. I've got some stuff about finding your voice on social, how to set up a content calendar, that type of thing. Seth's got some great stuff. We've had Maddie, who did her presentation on maximizing your GMB, and they've got some other videos and other content that we're going to put out there. So that's really what the Law Firm Blueprint is all about, giving you the stuff that you need to build the law firm that you want and live the life you want from the practice that you love. Seth, what else you got for these wonderful people?
No, we I think we got great stuff. Excited to be back. I'm jazzed. I'm excited to work through this space concept because, I know that fully virtual is not something I can get to given our firm's needs. At the same time, I feel like the new normal should be not looked at as business as usual. And can we use space effectively, and figuring out how to maximize employee satisfaction, reducing commute times, things like that, so that those people that do need to go to the office can have that reduced.
That's awesome, folks. And really, that's what we're all about here. It's all about addressing not only the new normal, but figuring out what the next normal will be and helping you get there faster than your competition. So with that, this is the Law Firm Blueprint. I am Jay Ruane. He is Seth Price. You can catch us every week here live at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. Be sure to join in. Of course, catch us up on any of the podcast platforms if you want to keep up with the shows on the go. That's it for now. Bye for now.